And so here's what I'm going to do in terms of the cease and desist. So my lawyers have been going back and forth with her lawyer, and we've been trying to figure out what was actually said that was defamatory. Now, there was one thing that I did see that was mentioned that could be grounds for any type of lawsuit, but we have since corrected that. And so let me tell you what happened right before we get into the specifics of why we're here. All right, because this is my formal.
What if the story everyone called drama was actually a system hiding in plain sight? According to Tasha K, this situation was never about rumors spiraling out of control. It wasn't about screenshots leaked for shock value or timelines stitched together for clout. She says this was about receipts that took time, verified quietly off camera, away from social media, away from noise. And when those pieces finally aligned, they didn't expose chaos, they exposed structure. Publicly, Claressa Shields looked unbreakable, confident, loyal, standing firm in what she believed was real love. She posted strength, she defended trust. She looked like the most secure person in the room. But according to what was uncovered, while that confidence was on display, the foundation underneath it was already cracking. Not because of one woman, not because of one mistake, but because of overlapping dates, the same voice notes sent to different women, the same explanations recycled, only the inboxes changed. And that's when the narrative shifted. Tasha K claims this wasn't a man juggling secrets. It was a man managing lanes. 5 women, 5 roles, one provided emotional support, one stayed quiet, one was from the past that never really ended, one existed in the present, and one was kept as a future option. This wasn't disorder, it was design. The moment everything collapsed didn't happen online. There were no tears for the camera, no viral breakdown. It happened quietly on Christmas. The day she believed was theirs was already booked. While one story was being posted, another was being lived, placing Papoose with his family alongside Remy while loyalty was being defended elsewhere. And when silence followed, no denials, no explanations, Tasha K called it what it was. When receipts are real, silence isn't confusion, it's strategy. And once you see the system, the only question left is this: was Claressa the main woman or just the most visible one? To understand why this situation feels different, you have to stop looking at it like a scandal and start looking at it like a structure. According to Tasha K, this wasn't a relationship spiraling out of control. It was one carefully kept under control, and that distinction matters because chaos is accidental. Systems are intentional. She didn't describe random overlap, she described lanes. In her account, each woman occupied a specific emotional position. One wasn't competing with another, they were never meant to meet. One served as emotional grounding, someone consistently checked in on, leaned on, confided in. Another relationship stayed deliberately quiet, low profile, protected from social media and public attention. There was a past connection that never fully ended, history kept alive just enough to remain accessible. Then there was a newer involvement, recent, impulsive, undefined. And finally, a future option kept close enough to stay interested but distant enough to remain deniable. That isn't indecision, that's management. What made the story harder to dismiss wasn't flashy proof or dramatic screenshots. It was the consistency of the details. According to Tasha K, timelines didn't just overlap, they mirrored each other. Travel dates collided in ways that didn't make sense when compared side by side. Absences were explained with the same phrasing. Voice notes carried identical tones, identical reassurances, identical emotional language, only sent to different women. The excuses weren't creative, they were efficient. Family obligations, work conflicts, scheduling issues. Each explanation sounded reasonable on its own. Together, they formed a pattern, and patterns don't lie easily. Publicly, Claressa Shields appeared solid. That mattered more than people realized. Her confidence didn't just reflect strength, it stabilized the entire situation. When the most visible woman in the room looks secure, questions elsewhere lose urgency. Doubts feel unnecessary. According to the narrative, her strength didn't just protect her image, it protected the system. Tasha K claimed there were warnings, not dramatic confrontations, quiet ones, side conversations. Subtle inconsistencies pointed out gently, but love has a way of muting alarms. Red flags become misunderstandings, gaps become context, and reassurance from someone you trust often feels more convincing than instinct. This wasn't blindness, it was investment. The belief in loyalty wasn't just internal, it was defended, publicly. And once someone defends a narrative out loud, walking it back becomes costly. Pride gets involved. identity gets involved. Admitting doubt starts to feel heavier than carrying uncertainty. That's where cognitive dissonance lives. According to the story, Claressa didn't see everything at once. No one ever does. Pieces surfaced gradually, messages that felt slightly off, timing that didn't fully add up. Instead of confrontation, there was interpretation. Instead of accusation, there was internal negotiation. Maybe this doesn't apply to me. Maybe my role is different. Maybe there's context I'm missing. Systems survive in that space because systems don't rely only on deception, they rely on hope. The turning point wasn't a public argument or a viral leak, it was Christmas, a date that clarifies priorities without explanation. According to Tasha K., Claressa spent that day alone. The reason she was given sounded harmless, family obligations. But the truth, as later framed, landed differently. Papoose wasn't unavailable. He was present elsewhere with family alongside Remy. That difference changed everything. It wasn't just about where he was, it was about where she wasn't. Being told family comes first carries weight, until you realize you were never included in that definition. According to the narrative, this is where certainty cracked. Not publicly, not emotionally, quietly. The kind of realization that doesn't demand answers immediately but never leaves once it arrives. From the outside, nothing appeared broken. Posts continued, supportive captions remained, the image stayed intact, but internally something shifted, emotional distance grew, future plans felt vague, decisions happened without consultation. According to Tasha K., one side was still building relationship optics, while the other was maintaining flexibility. And flexibility is power. When the story finally surfaced publicly, the reaction was striking, not because of outrage, but because of restraint. No detailed denials, no breakdowns, no timeline corrections. To Tasha K., that silence wasn't accidental, it was experienced. When someone has managed multiple narratives at once, they understand the danger of saying too much. Words create angles. Angles invite scrutiny. Scrutiny exposes structure. Silence leaves nothing to dissect. That's when the conversation shifted. It stopped being about if something happened and started being about how long it had been happening. How long had the system been running? How long had each lane been maintained without collision? According to the claims, overlaps weren't mistakes. They were calculated risks, travel schedules were staggered, communication rhythms were adjusted. The structure only worked as long as every woman believed her role was unique. Claressa's role, as framed, wasn't secrecy. It was visibility. Her confidence, her public presence, her unwavering defense of loyalty made everything look legitimate. As long as she appeared secure, the system stayed protected. And that's the most uncomfortable truth in this story. Not that she was deceived, but that her strength was used as insulation. Tasha K. made one thing clear. This wasn't about portraying Claressa as weak. It was about exposing a pattern. A pattern where powerful men distribute emotional access across multiple women while presenting a single controlled image to the public. And once that pattern becomes visible, the system doesn't collapse immediately. It tightens. By the time this story entered its third phase, it stopped expanding and started narrowing. That's how pressure works inside systems. It doesn't explode outward, it compresses inward. According to Tasha K., this is the moment most people misread. They expect a reaction, a statement, a breakdown. But what actually happens is far quieter and far more revealing. Nothing appeared broken on the surface. Claressa's shields remained composed, no emotional posts, no public accusations, no attempts to control the narrative. To the casual observer, that silence looked like confidence, like stability, like the allegations hadn't landed. But silence doesn't always mean nothing happened. Sometimes it means everything already did. This is where the power dynamic shifted. Once patterns stop feeling coincidental, the mind stops searching for explanations. The internal question changes from "is this true?" to "how long has this been true?" According to the narrative, this was the turning point. The moment where denial stopped being protective and started becoming exhausting. And exhaustion is dangerous because it drains the energy systems depend on. The conversation was no longer about 5 women. It wasn't about Christmas. It wasn't even about loyalty. It became about image, about what happens when public strength turns into a cage. There's a paradox in being visibly strong. People stop checking on you. They stop asking if you're okay. They assume certainty. And when you don't react immediately, silence gets misread as confirmation that nothing serious occurred, that the story was exaggerated, that the rumors missed their mark. According to Tasha K., that assumption is often wrong. Silence doesn't always mean acceptance. Sometimes it means calculation. Sometimes it means survival. Because once you've defended a narrative publicly, walking it back isn't just painful, it's humiliating. It forces you to replay every caption, every post, every moment you stood confidently beside something that was quietly unraveling. Humiliation keeps people silent longer than heartbreak ever could. On the other side of that silence stood Papoose, still restrained, still minimal. No long denials, no detailed breakdowns, just enough presence to signal awareness and just enough distance to avoid being pinned down. To Tasha K, that restraint wasn't fear, it was experience. When someone has managed multiple emotional lanes at once, they already know the most dangerous thing they can do is talk too much. Words create evidence. Evidence invites scrutiny. Scrutiny exposes structure. Silence leaves nothing to dissect. And as long as nothing is officially denied, the story remains suspended, never closed, never resolved. That suspension is where systems thrive. One detail continued to matter more than most people realized: the divorce that wasn't finalized. According to Tasha K, this wasn't about paperwork, it was about leverage. As long as ties to Remy remained unresolved, power stayed exactly where it was. No clean exit meant no forced decision. No finality meant no accountability. Uncertainty became currency. It allowed multiple futures to exist at once. It kept promises vague, it kept roles flexible. And in that flexibility, emotional weight didn't disappear, it concentrated. According to the narrative, Claressa was left holding that weight, balancing what she knew privately against what she had already defended publicly. Because once you become the visible symbol of stability, the system expects you to keep absorbing pressure quietly. Outward confidence doesn't stop internal pressure, it just delays when you let it show. Tasha K pointed out a pattern that appears again and again in situations like this. The strongest woman in the room is often expected to endure the most damage silently. No one assumes she's confused. No one rushes to protect her certainty. They assume she's fine because she looks fine. But strength doesn't cancel realization, it only postpones it. As time passed, the lack of response grew louder than any denial could have been. No timelines corrected, no Christmas explanation offered, no attempt to dismantle the structure being described. According to Tasha K, this wasn't an oversight. When receipts are real, silence becomes a weapon. Every word spoken can be replayed. Every sentence can be challenged. Silence leaves no fingerprints. That's when the story turned inward, not toward gossip, not toward speculation, toward a single decision point. Walking away would mean more than ending a relationship. It would rewrite a public identity. It would require admitting that something defended with confidence was never what it appeared to be. Staying would demand something else: compartmentalization. Living with clarity you can't unsee, choosing quiet over closure, image over certainty. Neither option offers peace, they just offer different losses. According to Tasha K, this wasn't about forcing a reaction. It wasn't about demanding statements. It was about recognizing when silence stops protecting and starts eroding trust permanently. Because once the public understands the structure, they stop waiting for confirmation. They start watching behavior. Who shows up, who avoids clarity, who keeps options open instead of closing chapters. Those answers don't arrive through announcements, they arrive through patterns. By this point, the word collapse had taken on its real meaning, not tears. Not headlines, not public embarrassment. The collapse of illusion. The illusion that visibility equals priority. The illusion that loyalty was exclusive. The illusion that silence meant safety. Because once a structure is visible, you can't stand inside it comfortably anymore. The most dangerous moment still hadn't happened, not because something louder was coming, but because the next move would be quiet. Decisions are always made privately before outcomes appear publicly. And when those decisions come, they don't announce themselves. They reveal themselves over time. By this point, the story was no longer unfolding in public. It was unfolding internally. According to Tasha K, this is the stage people rarely recognize because it doesn't look like damage. There are no viral clips, no emotional statements, no visible cracks. Just silence, and silence in situations like this is never empty. It's heavy. This is the moment after realization, when the mind stops negotiating. When you're no longer asking whether something could be misunderstood, but instead asking how long you've been standing inside something that was never designed to protect you. For Claressa Shields, the collapse wasn't loud. It wasn't public. It wasn't emotional chaos. It was internal recalibration. a quiet reprocessing of everything she had defended with confidence, now viewed through clarity instead of hope. And clarity doesn't feel empowering at first. It feels humiliating, because clarity forces memory to replay everything, every caption, every public defense, every time you reframed doubt as loyalty, every warning you softened instead of confronting. According to Tasha K, this wasn't weakness. It was emotional investment colliding with truth. That collision leaves no room to hide. This is where silence changes meaning. Earlier, silence functioned as protection, as image control, as restraint. But now, silence became pressure, not from the public, from within. Because once you see the pattern clearly, pretending not to see it requires energy. And energy eventually runs out. Silence stopped being neutral. On the opposite side of that silence, Papoose remained steady, unbothered in public appearance. No denials, no clarifications, no visible urgency. To Tasha K, this wasn't indifference, it was positioning. Silence used as insulation. As long as nothing is acknowledged, nothing is pinned down. As long as nothing is pinned down, accountability remains optional. This is how systems resist collapse. One detail continued to hang over everything: the unresolved divorce. According to Tasha K, this wasn't a footnote, it was leverage. As long as legal and emotional ties to Remy Ma remained unfinished, the system stayed flexible. No finality meant no forced choices. No closure meant no consequences. Ambiguity became protection. And when ambiguity exists, pressure doesn't disappear, it shifts. Instead of falling on the person who created the overlap, it lands on the person expected to respond gracefully, to stay composed, to avoid embarrassment, to protect everyone's image. That's where strength becomes a liability. When you're known for resilience, people assume you can handle more than you should have to. They assume silence means control. They assume endurance equals acceptance. But endurance isn't peace, it's postponed damage. Tasha K pointed out something uncomfortable here. Public strength often becomes a trap. It convinces everyone, including the person carrying it, that staying quiet is the mature choice, that walking away would look messy, that choosing yourself publicly would feel like failure, so silence stretches on. And in that stretch, pressure builds, not from what's being said, but from what isn't. No denial of 5 women, no correction of the Christmas story. No dismantling of the structure being described. Silence becomes its own message, not of innocence but of patience. Patience is dangerous when it's one-sided. This is the phase where systems rely on fatigue, on the assumption that public attention will move on, that outrage will soften, that the person holding the emotional weight will eventually choose the path of least resistance, not because it's right but because it's easier. Silence isn't absence. It's pressure without fingerprints. According to the narrative, Claressa reached a psychological crossroads here, not confused, not searching, just aware, and awareness changes everything. Because once you stop asking if and start asking how long, the relationship has already shifted. Staying would require compartmentalization, learning to live with knowledge you can't unsee, choosing quiet over closure, image over certainty. Walking away would demand something else entirely, rewriting identity, admitting publicly that something you defended with certainty was never what you thought it was. Neither option offers peace. Tasha K emphasized that this wasn't about forcing confrontation. It wasn't about demanding statements. It was about recognizing the moment silence stops protecting and starts corroding trust permanently. Because once the public understands the structure, they stop waiting for confirmation. They start watching behavior: who shows up, who avoids clarity, who keeps options open instead of closing chapters. Those answers don't come from interviews, they arrive through time. By now, the word collapse had fully transformed. It was never about embarrassment, it was about illusion. The illusion that loyalty was mutual, that visibility meant priority, that silence meant safety. Once those illusions fall, there is no neutral ground left. This is the part of the story most people never witness, the space between exposure and decision. The stretch of time where nothing seems to happen publicly but everything is being decided privately, where silence becomes heavier than speaking, where strength starts asking a dangerous question: who am I protecting now? The system hadn't collapsed yet, it was waiting to see if silence would continue to work, waiting to see if fatigue would win, waiting to see if the cost of walking away would feel heavier than the cost of staying. Because the real collapse doesn't arrive with noise. It arrives when silence stops serving anyone. By now, the story didn't need more proof, it needed a choice. According to Tasha K, this is where situations like this truly end. Not with confirmation, not with denial, but with a private decision made long before the public ever sees the outcome. Because once clarity arrives, explanations lose their power. For Claressa Shields, this moment wasn't about embarrassment. It was about identity. Walking away wouldn't just end a relationship, it would dismantle a version of herself she had defended publicly. The strong one, the loyal one, the woman who stood firm when questions were raised. Admitting the truth would mean admitting that loyalty wasn't exclusive, that visibility wasn't priority, and that silence didn't mean safety. That costs pride. But staying costs something deeper. Staying requires learning how to live beside knowledge you can't unsee. It means choosing quiet endurance over clarity. It means accepting ambiguity as permanent. And over time, that choice doesn't just drain energy, it reshapes self-respect. Neither option offers peace, they just offer different losses. This is where legacy quietly enters the room, not legacy as branding, but legacy as memory. Years from now, the details will blur. The names, the timelines, the allegations will fade, but the decision will remain. Whether strength was used to protect an image or to protect the self behind it. According to the narrative, systems fear this moment more than exposure. Exposure can be managed. What systems can't control is withdrawal. The moment someone stops participating quietly. The moment they choose distance instead of defense. That moment doesn't require an announcement. It shows up in behavior. Who stops explaining, who stops absorbing pressure meant for someone else, who quietly chooses peace over performance. Papoose never needed to say much. Silence kept flexibility intact. As long as nothing was finalized with Remy or anyone else, options stayed open. But flexibility only benefits one side. The other side pays for it emotionally. That imbalance is the real center of this story. This was never about villains and victims. It was about power, access, and who carries the emotional cost when truth arrives late. About how strong women are often expected to endure quietly because they're capable of doing so. But endurance isn't the same as peace. This story doesn't end with a breakup headline. It doesn't end with a statement. It ends with a decision. And whatever that decision is, it will shape everything that follows, not loudly, not dramatically, but permanently. By now, this isn't about rumors, it's about what wasn't denied. Because when accusations are false, people rush to correct them. Timelines get clarified, stories get challenged. But when silence stretches on, it stops feeling like confusion and starts feeling like positioning. This was never about one lie. It was about a structure built on overlap, ambiguity, and emotional convenience. And once a structure like that is exposed, it doesn't collapse immediately. It waits, it watches. It applies pressure where silence has worked before. So here's the real question. Was this a coincidence or a system? Was visibility the same as priority or just a useful shield? And when loyalty turns into multitasking with better timing, how long can silence really survive? Because strength doesn't mean you're immune to realization. It just means you carry it longer. And realization doesn't scream, it suffocates. Walking away costs pride, staying costs self-respect. Either choice leaves a scar. Now it's on you. Do you think silence here is strategy or avoidance? Do you think systems like this survive without everyone playing their role? And if you were standing in her position, what would you choose? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Share this before it disappears from the timeline. And remember, the real collapse never happens in public. It happens the moment someone decides whether to protect the image or finally protect themselves.